My name is Walter Sterling. I'm 82 years old and I spent 43 years as a real estate broker in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've closed more deals than most agents see in their entire careers, and I learned something important along the way. People reveal their true nature when money's involved. After my wife Margaret passed away 2 years ago, I started living alone in our suburban home. It's a comfortable place, nothing fancy, but it's paid off and worth about $800,000. I have another $2 million in various investments and savings accounts. Not bad for an old broker who started with nothing. The thing about getting older is that your mind plays tricks on you sometimes. I'd forget where I put my car keys or struggle to remember a neighbor's name. Normal stuff for someone my age. But it started to worry my kids. Todd, my 53-year-old son, lives in Atlanta where he works in insurance. Lisa, my daughter, is 50 and teaches high school in Richmond, Virginia. After Margaret died, they started calling more often. Then the calls became visits. "Dad, we're just concerned about you living alone," Todd said during one of his weekend trips to Charlotte. "Maybe you should consider some help around the house." "I'm doing fine," I told him. "I can still cook, clean, and drive just fine." But something felt off about their sudden attention. The visits increased from monthly to weekly, and they'd ask pointed questions about my finances, my doctor visits, my daily routine. They were particularly interested in my important documents. "Dad, where do you keep your will and insurance papers?" Lisa asked one afternoon while looking through my desk. "We want to make sure everything's organized in case something happens." I showed her my filing cabinet, thinking it was normal for adult children to know these things. But their questions kept getting more specific. How much was the house worth? What bank did I use? Did I have any debts? That's when I started getting suspicious. 43 years in real estate teaches you to read people, and my kids were acting like buyers who'd already decided to make an offer. So I did what any smart businessman would do. I started paying closer attention and keeping notes. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video, and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. 6 months after Margaret's funeral, Todd and Lisa presented me with what they called a solution. They'd found a premier geriatric assessment facility in Asheville, about 2 hours from Charlotte. "It's not a nursing home, Dad," Lisa explained. "It's more like a medical spa. They'll evaluate your overall health and cognitive function. Insurance covers most of it, and you'll only be there for 2 weeks." Todd nodded enthusiastically. "Think of it as a tune-up for your brain and body. The doctors there specialize in helping seniors maintain their independence." The way they presented it made sense. I was having those memory lapses, and maybe a professional evaluation would give me peace of mind. But something about their eagerness bothered me. "Let me think about it," I said. "Dad, we've already made the reservation," Lisa said quickly. The waiting list is months long, but they had a cancellation for next week. That was my first red flag. Nobody makes medical reservations for someone else without asking first. All right, I said carefully, if you think it's best. They were thrilled. Too thrilled. They handled all the paperwork, scheduled everything, and even offered to pack my bags. All I had to do was show up. But I wasn't going anywhere without taking some precautions first. The week before I was supposed to go to Asheville, I made some quiet preparations. First, I bought a small digital recording device from Best Buy, the kind journalists use for interviews. North Carolina is a one-party consent state, which means I could legally record any conversation I was part of. I also called my longtime attorney, James Peterson, without mentioning anything to Todd or Lisa. "Jim, I need to ask you something confidentially," I said. "Has anyone from my family contacted you about my legal documents recently?" There was a pause. "Walter, I can't discuss specific conversations, but I will say this. If you have concerns about your estate planning, we should meet soon." "That tells me everything I need to know," I said. "Don't schedule anything yet, but be ready for my call." The facility in Asheville was nice enough. Clean rooms, friendly staff, decent food. The first few days involved standard medical tests, blood work, and basic cognitive assessments. Nothing seemed unusual. But on the third day, I was walking back from the cafeteria when I heard Todd's voice coming from the administrator's office. The door was slightly open. "How long does the competency evaluation usually take?" he was asking. "Well, Mr. Sterling, these cases vary," a woman replied. "But given what you've described about your father's condition, Dr. Brennan usually has his assessment completed within a week." "Good. Our attorney says once we have the medical documentation, the guardianship petition should move quickly." Guardianship petition. Those words hit me like ice water. I quietly backed away and returned to my room, my mind racing. The memory lapses, the sudden concern, the convenient facility recommendation. It was all part of a plan. My own children were trying to have me declared mentally incompetent so they could control my money. That evening, I called James Peterson from the phone in my room. "Jim, I need you to listen carefully," I said. "I'm at a medical facility in Asheville, and I believe my children are trying to have me declared incompetent. I need to know exactly what legal documents they might be able to access or change." "Walter, that's a serious accusation. What makes you think?" "I overheard Todd talking about a guardianship petition. They've been asking about my assets for months. I need to protect myself, and I need to do it now." James was quiet for a moment. "If someone gets legal guardianship, they could potentially control all your financial decisions, including changing beneficiaries on accounts and even selling property. But Walter, they'd need medical evidence of incompetence. They're getting that evidence manufactured right here," I said. The next day, I had my scheduled meeting with Dr. Brennan. He was a thin man in his 50s who barely looked up from his computer screen during our conversation. "Mr. Sterling, I've reviewed your preliminary test results," he said. "There are some concerning indicators of cognitive decline. Nothing severe yet, but enough that your family might want to consider taking a more active role in your care." "What specific indicators?" I asked. "Memory retention issues, some confusion about dates and times, difficulty with problem-solving tasks." I stared at him. The day before, I'd solved a complex mathematical problem he'd given me and recited my complete work history with dates and addresses. Either he was looking at someone else's file, or he was lying. "Doctor, who's paying for my stay here beyond what insurance covers?" "Your family arranged for additional coverage to ensure you receive the most comprehensive evaluation possible." Additional coverage. In other words, they were paying him for the diagnosis they wanted. That afternoon, I made another call to James Peterson with specific instructions. "Jim, I need you to drive up here tomorrow. Don't tell anyone you're coming. And bring my original will. We're going to need to make some changes before it's too late." While I waited for James to arrive, I started documenting everything. Every conversation, every test, every suspicious interaction. I wrote down names, times, and exact quotes as best I could remember them. I also did something else. I called my niece Sarah in Raleigh. "Uncle Walter, how are you feeling?" she asked. Sarah was Margaret's brother's daughter, a nurse who'd always stayed in touch without ever asking for anything. "I'm fine, honey, but I need to ask you something important. If something happens to me, if I become unable to make decisions for myself, would you be willing to help make sure my wishes are followed?" "Of course, Uncle Walter. Is everything okay?" "I hope so, but I want to be prepared for anything." James Peterson arrived the next morning with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a neuropsychologist from Wake Forest University. While the facility staff thought I was resting, Dr. Mitchell conducted a comprehensive 3-hour evaluation in a conference room James had reserved at a nearby hotel. "Mr. Sterling," she said afterward, "your cognitive function is completely normal for someone your age. Your memory, reasoning, and decision-making abilities are all well within healthy parameters. See no evidence of any impairment that would affect your legal capacity. Can you document that officially?" "Absolutely. I'll have a detailed written report ready by this afternoon." While Dr. Mitchell prepared her report, James and I drove to a notary public in downtown Asheville. I had him draft a codicil to my existing will, a legal amendment that would completely change how my estate would be distributed. Instead of leaving everything to Todd and Lisa as my original will specified, I redirected the majority of my assets to Sarah. She'd earned it through years of genuine care and attention, never asking for anything in return. But I didn't stop there. James helped me establish an irrevocable trust and immediately transferred $1.8 million into it, with Sarah as the beneficiary. Once that money went into the trust, no court order could touch it. even if Todd and Lisa somehow succeeded in their scheme. "Walter, this is a major decision," James said as we signed the documents. "Are you certain about this?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Meanwhile, back in Charlotte, Todd and Lisa were busy with their own plans. I learned later that they'd already filed a petition for guardianship in Mecklenburg County Court, claiming I was mentally incompetent and needed supervision. They'd hired Robert Hayes, a lawyer who specialized in what he called protective guardianship cases. Hayes had built his practice helping families gain legal control over elderly relatives' assets, often using questionable medical evaluations as evidence. But here's what they didn't know. I'd been recording every phone conversation with them since I first became suspicious 6 weeks earlier. Every call where they discussed my condition, every conversation about my assets, every planning session for what they thought would be their inheritance. On those recordings, Todd and Lisa revealed their true intentions. They discussed selling my house immediately after gaining guardianship. They calculated how much money they'd each get. They even complained about having to wait for me to die naturally. "Once we have power of attorney, we can liquidate everything," Todd's voice said on one recording. "The house, his investments, everything. We'll put him in the cheapest nursing home we can find and split the rest." When I returned to Charlotte after my stay at the facility, I went straight to James Peterson's office with all my evidence. The recordings, Dr. Mitchell's cognitive evaluation, my detailed notes about the suspicious interactions at the facility, and documentation of the asset protection measures we'd taken. "Walter, they've scheduled a competency hearing for 3 weeks from now," James said, reviewing the court filings. "They're claiming you're a danger to yourself due to severe dementia and cognitive decline." "Perfect," I said. "Let them make their case. I've got everything I need to destroy it." James looked at me with something like admiration. "You know, in 30 years of practicing law, I've never seen someone prepare for a legal battle this thoroughly. 43 years in real estate taught me something valuable, Jim. Always have your documentation ready and never trust anyone who benefits from your signature." 2 weeks before the hearing, we filed our countermove. James submitted a motion requesting that all of my assets be frozen, pending a full investigation into attempted financial exploitation and elder abuse. We included Dr. Mitchell's evaluation, excerpts from the recorded conversations, and a request for an independent guardian ad litem to review the case. The guardian ad litem appointed by the court was Judge Patricia Williams, recently retired from the North Carolina Court of Appeals. She had a reputation for being thorough and absolutely intolerant of elder abuse cases. Judge Williams spent a week reviewing everything: the medical records, the recordings, the timeline of events, and the documentation showing how Todd and Lisa had tried to manipulate the system. "This appears to be a textbook case of financial exploitation disguised as family concern," she wrote in her preliminary report to the court. "The alleged incompetent person has demonstrated superior planning and cognitive function, while the petitioners have demonstrated clear intent to defraud. When Todd and Lisa received copies of Judge Williams's report, they panicked. They hired a second attorney and demanded their own independent medical evaluation of my mental state. "Fine by me," I told James. "I'll take any test they want. My mind is sharper now than it's been in years." The competency hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in December. Todd and Lisa arrived at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse with their attorney, Robert Hayes, looking confident. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Judge Martha Collins presided over the case. She was known throughout Charlotte's legal community for being thorough and having zero tolerance for elder abuse. James Peterson had specifically requested assignment to her court. "Your Honor," Hayes began, "we're here because Walter Sterling is clearly suffering from progressive dementia and poses a danger to himself and his assets. The medical evaluation from the Asheville Geriatric Assessment Center confirmed significant cognitive decline requiring immediate family intervention." Judge Collins looked at the thick file in front of her. "Mr. Hayes, I also have a comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation from Dr. Sarah Mitchell at Wake Forest University that directly contradicts your medical claims. Additionally, I have a preliminary report from guardian ad litem Judge Patricia Williams raising serious questions about your client's motivations. Which evidence would you prefer to address first?" Hayes looked stunned. He clearly hadn't expected any opposition evidence, let alone this level of preparation. James Peterson stood up. "Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence that this guardianship petition is fraudulent and represents a deliberate conspiracy to steal Mr. Sterling's estate through manufactured medical evidence. For the next hour, we systematically destroyed their case. First came Dr. Mitchell's evaluation, which definitively established my mental competency. Then came the recordings. The most damaging was a phone conversation between Todd and Lisa from 2 weeks before the hearing. Once the court declares him incompetent, we'll have complete control." Todd's voice played clearly through the courtroom speakers. "We can sell the house, liquidate his accounts, and split everything 50-50. What about that nurse cousin of his, Sarah?" Lisa responded. "Doesn't she get something in his original will? Maybe 10,000. The rest comes to us. Dad's confused and won't remember what he had anyway. We should move fast once we get guardianship. Get everything converted to cash before anyone can interfere." Judge Collins stopped the recording. The courtroom was dead silent. "Mr. Hayes, would your clients care to explain this conversation?" Todd and Lisa sat frozen. Their attorney shuffled through his papers, clearly unprepared for this level of evidence against his clients. But we weren't finished. James presented the documentation showing their attempts to access my financial information without authorization, evidence of the payment arrangements with Dr. Brennan at the Asheville facility, and most importantly, proof that I had already taken legal steps to protect my assets while fully competent. "Your Honor," James said, Mr. Sterling executed a legal codicil to his will and established an irrevocable trust while his mental capacity was independently verified. The original petitioners attempted to have him declared incompetent specifically to prevent him from making these protective changes to his estate plan. Judge Collins reviewed all the documents, listening to additional excerpts from the recorded conversations. When she looked up, her expression was stern. "I find absolutely no credible evidence that Walter Sterling lacks mental capacity. In fact, the evidence demonstrates that he showed remarkable foresight and intelligence in protecting himself from what can only be described as a conspiracy to defraud him of his life savings." She turned to Todd and Lisa. "The petition for guardianship is not only denied, but I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation of possible criminal charges, including attempted fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy." The gavel came down with finality. Outside the courthouse, Todd confronted me in the parking lot. "Dad, you don't understand. We were trying to protect you. We're your children. You were trying to rob me," I replied calmly. "And I have that conversation recorded too." Lisa started crying. "We'll appeal this. We'll contest the new will. You can't cut us off completely." "You can try," I said. "But the trust is irrevocable. The codicil was executed while I was demonstrably competent, and you've just been exposed in open court as fraudsters. Any lawyer who takes your case will be wasting your money." They did try to contest everything. They appealed the guardianship decision and lost. They challenged the will in probate court and lost again. After 18 months of legal battles, they'd spent over $150,000 in attorney fees, with nothing to show for it except a reputation in Charlotte's legal community as elder abusers. During this same period, I sold my large suburban house and moved into a comfortable 2-bedroom condo in a well-managed senior community. I used part of the proceeds to hire Sarah as my full-time companion. She'd taken early retirement from nursing to help me, and I made sure she was well compensated for her sacrifice. Sarah never asked for anything, and seemed genuinely surprised when I told her about the inheritance. She just wanted to make sure I was safe, comfortable, and happy in my final years. The beautiful irony is that Todd and Lisa's greed cost them everything they would have eventually inherited legitimately. If they'd been patient and genuinely caring children, they would have received substantial inheritances when I died naturally. Instead, their scheme to steal from me early guaranteed they'd receive nothing. 2 years after the court case, I received a letter from Todd. He'd lost his insurance job due to the legal bills and reputation damage. Lisa had been forced to sell her house and move into a rental apartment. Both were facing financial ruin and begged for forgiveness and help. I never replied to that letter. In real estate, we say location, location, location. But in life, I learned something more valuable. Character, character, character. Todd and Lisa revealed their true character when they thought they could steal from their own father. That's not something you forgive or forget. I'm 84 years old now. I live comfortably in my senior community, surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I'm worth. Sarah visits every day and I've made genuine friends here. My mind remains sharp and my conscience is completely clear. Sometimes people ask if I feel guilty about what happened to my children. The answer is no. They chose to see me as nothing more than a bank account with a heartbeat. I simply protected myself from people who had already decided to rob me. The best revenge isn't getting even. It's living well while your enemies destroy themselves with their own greed and stupidity. Todd and Lisa taught me that lesson perfectly, though I doubt it's what they intended to teach. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment letting me know what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.